The concept of God has long been discussed through the lens of religion, philosophy, and culture. Yet beyond religious imagery, the essence of God may be understood as an omnipotent force that manifests within the natural order of existence. This force permeates all existence and reveals itself through nature. On Earth, everything humans need for survival, food, water, nourishment, vitality, is provided by the natural world. A child entering the world requires nothing beyond what the mother provides. This reality positions the woman, particularly the black woman, as the ultimate personification of natural divinity. Her body provides sustenance, even down to the neurological benefits of breast milk. In this sense, the black woman symbolizes the closest physical manifestation of God on earth. If the woman embodies natural creation, then the man's duty is provision and protection. Each individual has been endowed with unique skills and talents by nature, and it is man's responsibility to cultivate these gifts in order to provide for his family. Provision does not always mean identical outcomes across individuals, but rather the expression of one's inherent abilities to secure food, shelter, clothing, and stability. Biological warfare need not always take the form of overt attacks. It can occur subtly through systemic negligence and environmental contamination. The Flint water crisis represents a microcosm of such warfare, wherein contaminated water was knowingly supplied to residents. Considering that humans are composed of approximately 75% water, and given the relative simplicity of water purification, the prolonged neglect in Flint cannot be seen as accidental. This crisis exposes a broader vulnerability. Modern populations are dependent on systems they do not control. Unlike in pre-colonial Africa, where people were educated in cultivating and sustaining the land, modern societies rely entirely on external institutions for basic needs such as water, food, and electricity. This dependency allows for control, manipulation, and potential systemic attacks. Humanity now exists within what many call the Aquarian Age, a time associated with a return to right knowledge and truth after millennia of deception. This age is linked to the energy of Sirius, symbolized by water and growth. Children born into this age, often called indigo or golden children, carry heightened spiritual awareness and technological aptitude. The responsibility of the current generation is to provide these children with right knowledge rather than mental enslavement through dogmatic religion. Teaching truth and cultivating their natural brilliance ensures that these young ones grow into their destined roles as leaders and builders of a renewed society. While debates and ideological conflicts can drain collective energy, the broader mission remains to uplift the community and challenge systems of oppression. Music is one of the most powerful tools affecting human consciousness. Because it operates on the subconscious level, lyrical content and tonal frequency shape thought patterns and behaviors. The modern music industry, controlled by hidden forces, often promotes destructive messages that embed themselves into the psyche. Clubs and performance spaces are designed to enhance these effects, using light, frequency, and intoxication to lower spiritual defenses. This creates conditions where negative entities or energies may influence human behavior. Thus, music, once a sacred form of rhythm and healing, is now weaponized as a form of sorcery and control. Sex is both art and science, but its foundation is scientific. During sexual union, the woman gains energy through orgasm, raising her vibrational frequency, while the man expends energy through the release of semen. The orgasm can activate the woman's kundalini energy, producing a shift in consciousness. For men, the practice of semen retention allows for preservation of energy while still engaging in intimacy. When balanced properly, sexual energy can be used as a tool of healing, transformation, and spiritual elevation rather than depletion. The essence of God is not a distant religious figure but the omnipresent force of nature itself. Humanity's role is to align with natural order, embrace right knowledge, protect and provide for one another, and resist forces that seek to exploit or destroy life. Whether through contaminated water, deceptive education systems, manipulative music, or distorted sexual practices, the challenges of our era call for collective awareness and action. In the Aquarian Age, a new generation is prepared to rise with clarity and purpose. To support them, society must reclaim its relationship with nature, dismantle oppressive systems, and embrace the science of life as the true path to divinity and liberation. Many individuals, when moving beyond the confines of Christianity, begin to search for spiritual traditions that resonate more deeply with their ancestral roots. Black people in particular often gravitate toward groups such as the Hebrew Israelites, the Nation of Islam, or Moorish Science. This tendency arises from the fact that African people stand at the origin of all civilization and spiritual practice. Importantly, the doctrine does not condemn any spiritual path. Rather, it acknowledges that all these traditions contain fragments of truth. Individuals must seek knowledge, read, and study so that their own spirit may guide them toward the school of thought with which they most resonate. A unique aspect of the teachings of Malachi York is his engagement with each of these traditions: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and others. He walked through these schools of thought and revealed their truths by way of right sound reasoning. Consequently, members of the community may gravitate more toward Islam, toward Hebrew traditions, or toward Egyptian science while still remaining part of the family, provided they accept right knowledge. For those transitioning from Christianity, the Holy Tablets is a central text. Initially, its complexity may seem confusing, but with study and community engagement its meaning becomes clearer. Unlike the King James Bible, which often presents mythological stories without scientific grounding, the Holy Tablets provides a scientific and historical explanation of events. For instance, the story of Lazarus is reinterpreted not as a miraculous resurrection but as a ritual conducted by a sacred order rooted in Egyptian tradition. Other key texts include Jesus Found in Egypt and Christianity, Is It Black or White? These works reveal the connections between biblical figures and Egyptian history while also uncovering how later figures, such as Paul and Cleopas, reshaped the narrative of Jesus. The Dead Sea Scrolls, often misinterpreted in modern translations, were originally written by the Essenes, also called Magus, a sacred order of astrologers who protected the children of Israel. These scholars charted the stars and thus predicted the coming of the Messiah. Their writings, hidden in caves during Roman persecution, were rediscovered in modern times. The doctrine emphasizes using experience, evidence, and reasoning as tools to validate such texts. Many contradictions in the Old Testament can be explained by the conflict between Enki and Enlil. For example, the Tower of Babel is understood as a struggle between Nimrod, who sought to use sacred technology to connect with extraterrestrials, and Enlil, who opposed this. The biblical account simplifies this conflict by attributing everything to God, thereby obscuring the deeper history of competing deities and their influence on humanity. Symbols such as pyramids, eyes, and suns, now common in corporate logos, were originally sacred emblems of ancient Egypt. These symbols were taken during the conquests of Alexander the Great and later adapted by European Masons. Modern Freemasonry, though rooted in African science, has largely fallen under European control. Malachi York is viewed as one who resurrected the authentic Egyptian order for melanated people. In ancient Kemet, deities were not mythological beings but personifications of natural forces. For example, Geb represented the earth, Shu the air, and Tefnut the moisture. The Most High, Ra, was associated with the sun, as all life on earth depends upon solar energy. Even the word holy derives from Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Thus, references to the Most High often unknowingly refer to this solar principle. Gold is emphasized in the doctrine both spiritually and economically. It is a conductor of energy and has historically been the foundation of economies. The removal of gold backing from currency led to the instability of the dollar, leaving society dependent on valueless paper notes. Accumulating natural resources such as gold is therefore seen as wise preparation for the eventual collapse of fiat currency. The Federal Reserve System is presented as a tool of control by European families such as the Rothschild and Morgans. Through fractional reserve banking, banks lend out deposits they do not actually have, creating an unstable system prone to collapse. Historical examples, such as the Great Depression, reveal how rumors and manipulations by financial elites have been used to justify further consolidation of power. The doctrine also addresses extraterrestrial realities. Events such as the Roswell crash of 1947 provide evidence of non-human entities, corroborating teachings in the Holy Tablets about extraterrestrial biological entities. Though much of this knowledge remains hidden by governments, it aligns with what Malachi York taught regarding beings from other planets and dimensions. It is taught that some beings take refuge underground, entering the earth through the poles or subterranean caverns. This echoes humanity's ancient awareness of inner worlds, often associated with the underworld in mythology. For non-melanated beings, this refuge also serves to shield them from the destructive power of the sun. A common question raised is whether the doctrine promotes prejudice against white people. The response emphasizes that the doctrine is not based on hatred of skin color but on historical and biological realities. Oppression has come not from color but from actions rooted in deception, manipulation, and historical oppression. Teachings about race are framed in terms of biology, melanin, and ancestral lineage rather than simple prejudice. The doctrine of right knowledge challenges individuals to seek truth beyond religious dogma, to reconnect with African origins, and to interpret both scripture and history through science, evidence, and reason. Whether through the study of the Holy Tablets, exploration of ancient Kemet, or examination of modern systems of control, the path ultimately leads to knowledge of self and unity within community. Ritual reconnects us to our essence, ancestors, and collective memory. Just as food nourishes the body, ritual nourishes the soul. Illness and conflict are not merely personal, they reflect imbalances within the community and the race. Healing requires attention to the physical, spiritual, mental, and etheric realms. Conflict, far from being an enemy, is seen as a gift, an ancestral summons to restore unity. Avoiding conflict brings disease of body and soul, while engaging it brings growth and reconciliation. Many Africans fall into illness when they abandon their ancestral sources and adopt foreign gods. Vibrations of the Torah, Bible, or Quran do not align with African DNA frequencies. Like tuning a radio to the wrong station, one only receives static. No matter the clothing, language, or outward practice, the essence of one's being cannot be changed. Healing, therefore, demands return to one's ancestral station, aligned with one's true source. There are different forms of ritual and healing: personal rituals, daily practices to cleanse and attune the spirit; spontaneous rituals, responses to unexpected or strange occurrences; radical rituals, communal interventions when negative forces overwhelm an individual; initiation rituals, life transitions such as adulthood, sexuality, and responsibility. Initiation shatters the old self into fragments, forcing one to rebuild anew under guidance. It teaches that hardships are pathways to growth, and that the old must die for the new to live. Healing also takes place through community responsibility. When one suffers, all are affected. The illness of one reflects hidden issues of the whole. Some are born healers, others are chosen, and some arrive by curiosity, only to find no return. A true healer lives in ritual, song, and ancestral awareness. False seekers, driven by lust, pride, or pretense, inevitably fall into shadows. The healer's duty is to bridge the seen and unseen, realigning souls with ancestral frequencies. Truth is sacred, not to be twisted. Ritual sustains the soul as food sustains the body. Conflict is opportunity for reconciliation and growth. Healing must restore connection to one's ancestral source. The path of initiation transforms suffering into wisdom. Ancestral alignment is the key to health, unity, and spiritual survival. Through proclamation, ritual, and remembrance, the NWPU people are guided to walk upright in truth, never forsaking the legacy of their ancestors. The ancient teachings emphasize that the spiritual plane operates at 180 degrees to the physical plane. In Egyptian cosmology, the realm of the dead appears inverted compared to the realm of the living. This reflects a universal principle: as above, so below; as below, so above. Life and death, heaven and earth, hot and cold, these are dual realities. Heaven is often misunderstood as a place above, and hell as a place below, yet both generate from a single point. Duality does not imply separation but interdependence. Light and darkness, good and evil, each exist as expressions of one another. Temperature, for example, illustrates duality. Hot and cold emerge from the same continuum, with warm or cool as the balancing center. Similarly, good and evil arise not as absolutes, but as polarities within one field of creation. The deception of binary thought, heaven versus hell, God versus devil, limits understanding. In truth, human beings themselves are the central force. It is through conscious choice that one defines good, evil, and the divine. Too often we breathe shallowly, and this weakens not only the body but the mind and spirit. But when the diaphragm draws air downward like a great vacuum, filling the mid-lungs and expanding outward and upward, we experience union, healing at every level: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. The breath is the bridge between the etheric and the physical. It is both medicine and prayer. Inhalation is receiving love, wisdom, and support. Exhalation is offering that same love, wisdom, and support back to our brothers and sisters. This is how we live in harmony with natural nature. As we breathe with awareness, we return to natural alignment, back into the image of Nagaru, back into our authentic design. Our bodies are vessels, instruments meant to stay in tune. When we misuse them, we fall out of harmony. Through fasting, breath, and awareness, we retune ourselves. The symbol of the doorway reminds us, the way inward is the way forward. When we are truthful with ourselves, we see the oneness reflected all around us. Healing means restoring our stories, reuniting our many dimensions, mental, emotional, and physical, into a single wholeness. Know this: every breath is itself a prayer, a rhythm of expansion and contraction mirroring the heartbeat of life. Your very nose, called Maha, is a reminder of the third eye, the jewel of spiritual sight. This is the gateway linking spiritual and physical reality. Thus, begin all prayers with the breath. The all expands, and we expand with it. Holy, 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 the Overseer, the Almighty, the all-existing, spanning all space and time. Within this, there is no salvation but through a culture of our own, for we cannot lie to ourselves. The tactic of separation was enforced through deception, through violation, and through the forgetfulness of our mothers, the gateways of life. When we forget our divinity, we descend into mortality. Forgetfulness breeds disconnection, and disconnection makes us vulnerable. From this forgetfulness came tyrants and demigods, alliances with reptilian forces, and the weaving of a system designed to keep us divided. Even within our very DNA, genetic markers bear the scars of this history. Yet, through awareness, fasting, breath, and the chants of our ancestors, we purify ourselves, healing the lineage both inside and outside. This is why we study. This is why we remember. Because healing is not only for ourselves but for all who came before us and all who will come after. Those who joined themselves to forgetful beings became witches, sorcerers, spellcasters, practicing witchcraft, charms, and enchantments. The Bible speaks of this in Revelation 13:1-8 and connects to Revelation 18:1-24. In verse 23 it says, "For by your sorceries were all nations deceived." This ties into Revelation 12:9, where the dragon, Satan, that old serpent, is cast down to earth, deceiving the whole world along with his angels. The serpent often represents more than just Satan. It can also symbolize the Kundalini, the energy moving through the spine and nervous system. Baba explained how traumas, especially those passed through our lineage and nervous system, distort us. For example, when women say, "Men get on my nerves," it reflects how the nervous system has been infiltrated, carrying unresolved trauma. Healing requires restoring the nervous system and energy centers, which are rooted in our organs and glands. Hormones, secreted there, connect us to the ethers, yet when distorted, our emotions, hormones, and nervous system fall into imbalance. To regain control, we must restore balance to body, mind, and spirit. Remember also, Earth is symbolized as woman. Thus, the fall of the serpent reflects the infiltration and corruption of both women and humanity's collective nervous system. Malachi 3:5 warns against sorcerers and false religions created by them. Other verses such as Exodus 7:11, Jeremiah 27:9, Daniel 2:2, Revelation 21:8, and Revelation 22:15 speak against these practices. Isaiah 57:3 reads, "But draw near here, sons of the sorceress, seed of the adulterer." These represent ancient religions repackaged under new names, Wicca, Druidism, or later forms such as Abrahamism, Christianity, and Islam. Though appearing different, they trace back to the same ancient spell of Leviathan. This is why so many sects, cults, denominations, and clans exist. They are simply different flavors of the same system, whether Rastafarianism, Islam, or other movements. Each seems distinct but ultimately ties back to the same root deception. They made covenants with alien beings, extraterrestrials known as Mutalu. These beings were worshipped as deities, and their hybrid offspring became known as the sons of God. Religions throughout history have elevated such figures to divine status, giving them lineage and power. Some were seen as benevolent, others malevolent. These extraterrestrial covenants gave power to the Adamu/Adamites. Through genetic grafting, their DNA became hybridized and deformed, producing both abnormal bodies, malformation, and abnormal minds, malfunction. Modern gene editing reflects this same process, attempts to splice, remove, or fix DNA. Yet when humans tamper with genetics, removing one trait often causes unseen malfunctions elsewhere. What science calls junk DNA may hold vital functions, just as organs once thought useless, like tonsils, were later discovered to serve important roles. Distorting nature's delicate vibration leads to long-term imbalance. Nature is meant to heal itself. True healing requires realignment, not shortcuts. Trauma cannot simply be erased, it must be integrated and transformed. These hybrids lived in the image of disagreeable angelic beings, Elohim, Nephilim, fallen ones. They became malefactors, literally malefactors, born from the imbalance of their mother's trauma and forgetfulness, perpetuating malfunction into new generations. They also learned white magic, the mastery of illusion, division, and separation. White light splits into fragments, just as families and communities are divided through comparison and rivalry. In contrast, black magic represents wisdom of the collective, seeing each person's gifts as serving the whole. One unites, the other divides. In Genesis 4, those who lived in the land of Nod, descended from Cain, were taught the making of weapons and instruments of war. Lamech boasted of killing a young man, evidence of the violence taught by these fallen ones. From the sons of the gods, extraterrestrials, came enchantments, spells, sorcery, and the offering of blood and flesh. These practices are recorded in ancient books such as Enoch and Jubilees, which preserve stories missing from the present Bible and Quran. Spells are cast not only through ritual but also through sound, vibration, imagery, and language, the same way movies, music, and media shape emotions and beliefs today. Some gods demanded extreme practices, cutting the body, shedding blood, or even sacrificing flesh. In 1 Kings 18:27-28, false prophets cried out and cut themselves so that blood gushed forth. These alien beings, Kamayu, demanded covenant through blood, including practices such as circumcision, framed as holy but rooted in blood-offering traditions. Nature created the foreskin for a reason. It's filled with stem cells that aid in healing, benefiting both the individual and their partner. With proper hygiene and care, there's no natural reason to remove it simply because cultural norms dictate it. Other cultures practice female circumcision, which varies widely. Some remove the entire clitoris, some the inner lips, some just the hood. The closest equivalent to male circumcision is the removal of the hood, leaving the clitoris intact. Yet even that would be considered illegal and cruel in many countries. These practices have measurable effects, even on health, and many industries, including medical and cosmetic, profit from the stem cells found in foreskins and placentas. It's a reminder to question normalized practices and whether they serve true reason or just tradition. Regarding spiritual and historical perspectives, certain texts describe beings demanding blood and flesh offerings, finding a sweet savor in human desire and meat. Over time, the seed of Adam evolved into different groups: Hebrews, Israelites, Ishraelites, Nazaretes, eventually becoming Jews, Christians, and Muslims. This evolution often involved conversion and mixing, creating a mingled seed and illustrating how identities and cultures are repackaged over time. Leviticus 17:7 warns against offering sacrifices to false gods. When we consider sexism and the control of reproduction, it becomes clear, controlling women often controls entire populations. Historical events, like the Arab slave trade, illustrate this brutally. Men were castrated to prevent reproduction, while women were enslaved and forced to bear children, creating new identities and erasing African heritage. This manipulation of reproduction, identity, and power has long-lasting effects. Some may ask, why did our ancestors allow such suffering? The answer lies in cycles of life and nature. Life is ongoing, with many cycles of creation, destruction, and reconstruction. Strong genes persist, weaker ones fade, and our stories are meant to be remembered and healed for future generations. On Earth and other planets, beings exist in cycles. Some thrive when others are dormant. Time moves in circles, and nature enforces checks and balances. For example, in the rainforest, vines wrap around trees, eventually suffocating them. This maintains a balance, preventing one tree from dominating the ecosystem. Mosquitoes and bats also play their roles in the collective. Our ancestors understood this. Letting nature play out was essential. Even in chaos, there is divine order. By observing this, we learn not to hate, but to understand and respect every part of life. Finally, the connection between genetics, environment, and natural preferences is undeniable. For instance, some are naturally drawn to the smell of cooking meat, while others are repulsed. This variation is genetic, and understanding it helps us balance our lives and let each individual's nature play out. Ultimately, the wisdom of our ancestors and the cycles of nature teach us to live in harmony with the world, respect the natural order, and understand the deeper reasons behind both our biology and history. Historically, Hebrews, Israelites, Nazaretes, over time becoming Jews, Christians, and Muslims, were originally offering sacrifices to devils. Leviticus 17:7 reads, "They shall no more offer their sacrifices unto devils after whom they have gone a-whoring. This shall be a statute forever unto them throughout their generations." Their genetics, in a way, carried these imprints. Deuteronomy 32:17 also says, "They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not." What this reflects is the introduction of new genetic lines or influences, what some might call extraterrestrial interference. Within a single family, you see these differences manifest physically and behaviorally. For example, my siblings and I all have different dietary preferences, even though we're from the same household, and blood types differ as well. This shows how diverse genetic influences can be, even within a single lineage. Looking at Leviticus chapters 1-10, the text describes offerings, oblations, and sacrifices given to extraterrestrials, or gods who were actually visitors to Earth. Genesis recounts these beings walking on Earth, sometimes interacting with humans, eating flesh, and participating in rituals. Abraham's story illustrates this. Angels arrive at his tent, he prepares meat and bread, and serves them, showing direct interaction with these otherworldly beings. Psalm 68:14-18 describes the Almighty scattering kings and highlights the significance of certain hills chosen by these beings to dwell in, indicating preferences for specific locations. The presence of these extraterrestrials among humans explains much of what became religious or mythological narrative. Many humans don't remember their own history because trauma causes dissociation. For example, a man might invent heroic stories about his absent father, eventually believing the fiction himself. Trauma and memory suppression disconnect us from understanding our purpose and past. When people forget their past, they forget their reason for being. New archaeological discoveries, such as Sumerian and Egyptian scrolls, are now revealing truths about these histories, changing the way we view race, identity, and purpose. While in ignorance, some groups may emphasize race to distract from deeper truths about themselves. Historically, humans were bred for labor, food, and sexual exploitation by these alien-influenced races, with the goal of maintaining control and feeding bloodthirsty agendas. Religious belief systems often reinforce this control through blind faith. 2 Corinthians 5:7 says, "For we walk by faith, not by sight," and Hebrews 11:1 defines faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But true learning involves investigation, verification, and personal confirmation, going beyond faith to active understanding. Experience, observation, and experimentation allow us to distinguish fact from belief. For instance, before studying music properly, all notes sounded the same to me. With training, I could identify subtle differences, just as with understanding history, science, and the world around us. Many people are comfortable being preached to, rather than actively exploring truth themselves. But real empowerment comes from engaging with facts, observing patterns in life, and confirming knowledge firsthand. Prayer and intention, as I learned from personal experience, are not passive hope, they are active tools to direct energy and change outcomes. Vibrations, chants, and conscious thought have measurable effects on the body and mind, influencing physiology, emotions, and mental clarity. By actively studying anatomy, physiology, and vibration, I realized we have more power over our destiny than simply waiting and hoping. Ultimately, this journey is about moving from belief to confirmation, seeing patterns, testing ideas, and tuning into life actively, rather than being passive participants. Learning, observing, and confirming are the keys to understanding ourselves, our history, and our place in the cosmos. Yet many will join with the condemned forces of the fallen watchers, who roam the earth without form. These specters will multiply, seeking vessels to enter, those who open themselves in countless ways. They will inhabit liars. They will inhabit sorcerers. They will inhabit the sexually immoral. They will inhabit murderers. They will inhabit adulterers. They will inhabit abominators, those who rebel against nature. They will inhabit drunkards who abuse strong drink. They will inhabit those who abuse intoxicants. They will inhabit those who abuse and defile their bodies. They will inhabit slanderers and gossips. They will inhabit those who give themselves to blind belief and false faith. They will inhabit those who open themselves to spirits in seances and trances, calling on ghosts to speak through them. They will inhabit those who eat the flesh of creatures offered in blood sacrifice. They will inhabit those who kill creatures to appease false spirits. They will inhabit those who eat that which is unclean and unhealthy. They will inhabit those who kill the unborn children in the womb, mother and father alike becoming vessels for foul spirits. The womb, sacred gateway between realms, will be defiled. And through it, specters will enter, attaching themselves to generations yet unborn. The fallen specters deceive the inhabitants of the earth, claiming to be unseen gods or sons of God. They demand faith in the beast and in the host of spirits roaming the earth like birds trapped in a cage. These are days unlike any before, when Shaku people trade away their essence for lust and luster. Women remove their coverings in public, bearing themselves without shame. Many will overeat. Many will starve themselves. Foul and obscene language will become common, spoken as if normal. People will become vulgar in public and in private, mistaking vulgarity for truth and authenticity. Many people notice that the way they present themselves, through clothing, demeanor, or energy, affects how others respond. For instance, one individual recalled attempting to avoid unwanted attention by wearing loose or unattractive clothing. Surprisingly, this often attracted more attention. Over time, however, as their personal vibration and presence improved through inner work, the type of attention changed. Instead of receiving lustful remarks, they began to receive respectful greetings such as, "How are you, my sister?" This demonstrates that attraction is not solely based on appearance. Rather, it is tied to energy and self-respect. A common saying, "You are what you attract," holds truth in this sense. Those who maintain positivity and self-care tend to repel destructive interactions while drawing in more uplifting connections. Spiritual teachers emphasize that raising one's vibration is not only a personal responsibility but also contributes to the collective. By eating healthier, dressing with care, and maintaining cleanliness, individuals elevate their energy. This in turn inspires those around them. A workplace example illustrates this. A woman who consistently carried herself with grace and femininity inspired her co-workers, not through lust, but by raising morale and encouraging others to also present themselves well. Her energy provided an alternative to negativity and gave others something higher to aspire to. Thus, while one is not responsible for the behavior of others, there is a collective impact. Each person either contributes to the problem or to the solution. Modern trends sometimes encourage people to modify their bodies unnaturally, whether through implants or cosmetic alterations. From a spiritual perspective, this reflects a lack of knowledge about the body's sacred design. Studying anatomy fosters respect for the vessel and helps individuals appreciate their natural form. Artificial alterations, as well as habits such as poor hygiene or wearing synthetic materials, can disrupt one's natural vibration and open gateways for negative influences. Cleanliness, proper diet, and self-respect are therefore forms of psychic self-defense. The normalization of sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, reflects a troubling cultural trend. While destigmatization is important, normalization can downplay the serious physical and spiritual consequences. For instance, diseases such as HPV have been linked to cancers. Even after medical clearance, spiritual texts teach that such conditions can leave lasting energetic imprints. This is not merely about physical health, it affects one's soul development. Poor choices may act as anchors, keeping the spirit bound to the physical plane rather than allowing graduation to higher realms. Popular media influences social attitudes, particularly regarding sexuality and relationships. Shows such as Sex and the City normalized casual approaches to intimacy, shaping generations to view sex as transactional or recreational rather than sacred. Similarly, music once carried messages of reflection, community, and upliftment. Today, much popular music fosters competition, egoism, and aggression. These cultural shifts impact behavior, values, and even crime rates. Younger generations are increasingly resistant to traditional schooling, often because they recognize misinformation. These children are highly intelligent, sometimes described as golden children, but they require facts rather than fear-based teachings. Elders have a responsibility not to judge but to educate. Boundaries and respectful forms of address help establish structure, while truthful education provides children with tools to navigate their environment. Without this, many turn to drugs, escapism, or destructive behaviors. The modern world faces multiple crises: overcrowded prisons, often due to unjust systems and misguided actions, the spread and normalization of diseases, and an increase in spiritual vulnerability, where individuals open themselves to possession or walk-ins through unhealthy practices. These issues highlight the importance of grounding oneself in culture, spirituality, and discipline. Discernment between fact and fiction is crucial, as humanity approaches an era where higher life forms and cosmic shifts become undeniable. This study highlights the interconnectedness of self-care, cultural awareness, and spiritual discipline. From the way we dress to the music we consume, from the diseases we normalize to the children we educate, every choice influences both the individual and the collective. Raising one's vibration, respecting the body, and seeking truth in all things are not only acts of self-preservation but contributions to humanity's collective evolution. Spiritual growth is inherently tied to the principle of cooperation. True progress arises when individuals prioritize mutual support over competition. In practice, this entails recognizing one's own path while appreciating the contributions of others. Attempting to undermine another's progress is both counterproductive and detrimental to one's own development. Cooperation allows for reciprocal benefits. As one works on oneself, others benefit, and vice versa. Self-love is foundational to spiritual work. It involves taking full responsibility for one's actions rather than scapegoating others. For example, health outcomes, such as contracting illnesses, cannot justifiably be attributed to external influence. One must acknowledge personal agency. This principle extends to environmental stewardship, as seen in the metaphor of dying starfish and displaced marine life, emphasizing the consequences of neglect. Healing oneself has a direct impact on one's lineage and spiritual community. Through purification and personal transformation, individuals can release trapped ancestral souls and contribute to collective liberation. This process requires deliberate effort to cleanse oneself of negative attachments and desires, enabling one to engage with higher spiritual frequencies. The pursuit of truth demands inquiry and verification. Blind faith is insufficient. Spiritual understanding requires interrogation, investigation, and application. Knowledge must be grounded in experience and verified facts. Baba's teachings stress that reasoned understanding strengthens spiritual resilience and enables one to educate others responsibly. The acquisition of knowledge is both cumulative and practical. Learning through experience allows for effective teaching and mentorship. Understanding one's genetic and cultural heritage is essential to spiritual alignment. Misalignment, often caused by mixing with external influences, weakens spiritual integrity. Historical and contemporary examples demonstrate that neglecting cultural preservation can lead to destructive behaviors and entrapment in external systems of power. Therefore, maintaining cultural practices, language, and ethical principles safeguards spiritual and genetic health. Many preachers and leaders propagate doctrines they do not fully understand, creating a blind leading the blind scenario. True leadership involves discernment. One must follow those with proven expertise while remaining critically engaged to learn and internalize knowledge. This principle reinforces the value of cooperative learning and critical evaluation of teachings. Individuals are warned against being ensnared by material and spiritual temptations. Unchecked desire can act as a form of self-imposed hell. Spiritual growth requires confronting and purifying these attachments, a process akin to a baptism by fire, leading to liberation and heightened understanding. Many traditional religious teachings present a deity who demands obedience, sanctions violence, or rewards earthly pleasures with promises of heaven. Baba's framework contrasts this by emphasizing natural law, reason, and ethical responsibility. True divinity operates within the laws of nature and supports communal well-being rather than perpetuating coercion or injustice. Baba's teachings underscore the interconnectedness of personal development, cultural preservation, and spiritual awakening. Cooperation, self-love, reasoned understanding, and ethical responsibility form the pillars of this framework. By internalizing these principles, individuals not only transform themselves but also contribute to the liberation and advancement of their communities. Knowledge, practice, and cultural awareness are essential tools for navigating both physical and spiritual realms, ensuring that personal and collective fate can be consciously shaped. Baba teaches us to understand the laws of nature, how they work, and how to embody them. He guides us to embody these laws ourselves, and that, in itself, is a miracle. Within this framework, we encounter the sacred trio, Hu, Sia, and Haya, sometimes pronounced Hu, Sia, and Hai. Despite variations in pronunciation, their essence remains the same. Hu represents the creative force. Sia represents perception and clear vision. Haya represents magic or supernatural strength. Magic is not random, it's a process. For example, a book may appear as a miracle, but it required many steps. Baba wrote it by hand, someone typed it, it was published, and finally, it reached readers. Similarly, creation requires vision, creative force, and the supernatural strength to follow through, even when it's difficult. This process itself is miraculous. Life has a process. Animism respects the forces that animate the visible and unseen world. Some deities keep followers in confusion by hiding this process, claiming total power but not intervening to prevent suffering, wars, or injustice. Baba, by contrast, teaches us to understand, embody, and navigate these forces. A deity that claims omnipotence yet allows suffering or tests individuals unnecessarily cannot be trusted. True growth comes from testing oneself, understanding DNA, experiences, influences, and working through them. Despite the odds, the miracle outcome is self-purification. Many are called, few are chosen, but you choose yourself. The tools exist, but you must actively use them. The central door of power resides in the heart. You cannot fake this. Yannin, the soul of the people, recognizes authenticity. This is different from traditional notions of an all-knowing, judgmental deity. Yannin cannot be deceived, and you cannot lie to yourself. Baba emphasizes learning through questioning. Words have layers of meaning shaped by culture, history, and language. Misinterpretations often arise when individuals rely on inherited definitions or superficial translations. True understanding comes from inquiry, careful listening, and practice. For example, religious texts are often mistranslated or misunderstood. Cultural conditioning and linguistic limitations obscure the original meanings. Baba teaches us concepts over dogma, showing how to work with nature and ourselves rather than blindly following external authority. Children, who are unprogrammed by previous cultural layers, have the clearest access to these truths. Understanding animism and ontology allows us to grasp natural laws and work with them. The body, reproduction, health, and spiritual growth are processes, not arbitrary acts. Mistakes are part of learning, and conscious application transforms understanding into practical wisdom. Baba's guidance helps us develop divine minds, not merely animal instincts. Translations of sacred texts, like the Quran or Bible, often fail to convey the original meaning fully. True comprehension requires returning to the language, roots, and culture of the original text. Until then, we work conceptually, knowing that children will eventually grasp the original truth naturally. Ultimately, Baba's teachings emphasize self-realization, mastery of nature, and divine growth. The goal is to move from mortal limitations back into alignment with the laws of nature, understanding the unseen, and embodying divine principles. Learning, questioning, and practice are lifelong processes, requiring patience, reflection, and active engagement. This knowledge, once considered common sense, is being shared openly so that no one can exploit those who haven't encountered it yet. Baba warned that just because someone knows more than you doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. Knowledge alone doesn't equate to integrity. You can read sacred texts and know facts, but it's up to you to apply them to your life and see where your own genetics and circumstances lead you. Stop blindly following others. Baba's aim is to awaken your mind. The term An-Nur, also spelled Anor or Noir, refers to light and fire. Allah is described as An-Nur/Anar in certain schools, a description rather than a literal translation. Before man made light, fire was the source of illumination. Candles, firelight, and burning flames were central to reading, writing, and learning. Arabs trace back to Abraham. Hebrews do as well. Muhammad and the Quran are connected to this lineage, just as Moses and the Torah are. These are different branches of the same spiritual root. Arabic and Hebrew share linguistic roots, with slight alterations over time to confuse those unaware. Knowledge of facts doesn't depend on how long you've studied, it's about knowing them now and applying them correctly. Many seek religion or culture superficially, but true understanding requires going beyond appearances. For example, Rastafarians reference the Old Testament, its cultural adaptation, but the spiritual truth remains rooted in ancestral knowledge. Modern lights, like media, flashy shows, can distract you from the truth. Baba teaches us to go behind the light, into the darkness, where the masters sit. Interrogate information to integrate it. Not all lights are good, some are meant to blind. The angel of light, who spoke to Moses from a bush of unnatural fire, is sometimes called Hillel or Lucifer, the torchbearer, the bringer of light. Light, fire, and electricity are connected. The Bible and other texts show that beings like Moses, John, and Muhammad were witnesses to the light, not the light itself. Light is meant to inspire belief but can also blind if misunderstood. The 9-ball metaphor, half of humanity is divine, half is destructive. True understanding comes from going beyond superficial light and seeing what lies behind it. Finite means limited. Things born of fire eventually burn out. Infinite means unlimited, like water, which exists in multiple states and cycles. Souls with infinite existence continue in different forms, whereas finite things expire. Evolution, 60, moves along a line, reaching an end. Revolution, 90, cycles in circles, allowing rebirth and continuous existence. The sun is 93 million miles away, the Earth's circumference is 24,000 miles, both numbers are used symbolically and practically. The Quran and other texts describe cycles of life, fire, light, and existence. Observing these relationships allows deeper comprehension beyond surface-level worship or ritual. Don't be starstruck by people or ideas. Go behind the light. Apply knowledge to your life to confirm its validity. Recognize that ancestral wisdom and cycles of nature guide true understanding. Not all religious or cultural adaptations lead to truth. Know your source and context. In the Quran, some teachings frame heaven in very earthbound terms, promises of wealth and material rewards. This reflects a finite mindset. Infinite existence, on the other hand, transcends these limitations and aligns with the dimensions where one truly needs to be. Some of us cannot move past certain densities or forms, so finite and infinite existences coexist. An example would be the fire children versus the golden children. The golden children represent infinite potential, but the fire children can distract them, keeping them trapped in a particular realm. The angel of light, the bringer of light, is fire of a burning bush, also known as Lucifer. Many preach the doctrines of Luciferians without understanding that light and fire are the same. The blind see not true light, the prism divides frequencies of light. To understand deeper, one must go behind the null, the sun. Satan is depicted as lightning fallen from heaven. This symbolism shows how light and fire can deceive. The Quran describes angels of glowing light delivering the holy book to Ahmed in Arabia. True power comes from animism, understanding the energy behind appearances. Physical forms may deceive. The reality is energy clusters and vibration. Light has degrees and frequencies, some good, some deceptive. Master Baba teaches that the divine realm of creation lies behind appearances, and understanding the who of creative will is key. Judgment is not condemnation, it's discernment. Quran 66-8, faithful repentance and submission allow the source Allah to cover evil actions. Quran 7:12, Job 2:1-2, Satan, Iblis, appears before Allah, he was created from fire, Adam from clay. Revelations 12:9-12, Satan deceives the world but is ultimately cast down. The deception of light is a recurring theme. Smoke, mirrors, and illusory appearances challenge discernment. True understanding requires looking behind appearances into the source. Psalm 68:1-17, fire children, low vibration, deceptive beings, walk among humans, while ghost children are energy specters. Master Baba teaches that for every golden child, there's a fire child influencing them. Awareness and guidance protect against these influences. Quran 997-108, desert Arabs often act as hypocrites or deceivers. Historical figures like Wafar Muhammad appeared half Arab, half European, dressed in Western suits to navigate societal structures. This appearance is deliberate, influencing perception. Master Baba emphasizes purifying oneself from external and internal deceptions to reclaim ancestral knowledge and identity, a process he calls unmingling. Western Islam, influenced by Shriners, Masonic orders, and Knights of Columbus, was designed to put African-minded people back to sleep. Baba's teachings aim to unwind these layers of deception and restore spiritual clarity and sovereignty. Question everything and seek understanding. Blind faith or unquestioning adherence often signals manipulation or deception. Real knowledge comes from looking behind appearances, understanding the energy and intent behind manifestations, and discerning truth from illusion. You won't truly appreciate this knowledge until you experience it for yourself. You can hear about it, even accept it, but real appreciation comes from confirmation and direct engagement. Once you know the truth firsthand, no one can take it from you. That's the kind of conviction we're aiming for. It's not about faith in the abstract. As Sabians, we don't gamble, we investigate, reason, and confirm what we're dealing with. In the 1960s and 70s, when Baba began teaching, most people weren't ready. Few listened. He had to communicate through the lens of existing schools and religions to make the teachings relatable. He gradually introduced truths alongside partial poisons, pieces of information that people might initially resist, but always with the cure present. There are steps to understanding, even before Baba physically appeared. Acknowledging predecessors like Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and others shows that progress is cyclical and cumulative. Malcolm X, for instance, shifted from the Nation of Islam toward Pan-Africanism after his experiences in Egypt, but he was ultimately killed, and the spell of sleep continued to be enforced. The point is, information can be misused. Many in the conscious community play with teachings without integrity, twisting doctrines for profit or power. We, however, engage with the knowledge, study it, and verify it ourselves. Baba's teachings provide diagrams, explanations, and methods to interrogate before integrating knowledge, a form of intellectual animism. The scriptures, the Bible, Torah, and Quran, come from the same source, but over time, meanings were altered, words switched, and original context lost. For example, Arabic in the Quran often references Hebrew sources, but meanings were sometimes manipulated. The Quran and Torah point to the same beings, events, and covenants, yet misinterpretation and deception have been used to control people. Baba explains these changes and manipulations in detail. He demonstrates that what many think of as divine intervention is often control, confusion, or selective instruction. Holy texts were not intended for all people universally but for specific communities at specific times. Yet through careful study, one can see patterns, trace linguistic and doctrinal evolution, and identify distortions. Moreover, spiritual power and authority are often misrepresented. The Elohim and Anunnaki, referred to in sacred texts, were not singular gods but a collective of beings. The he in translations is often actually we, a plurality of powerful entities manipulating circumstances, agreements, and genetics for control. Baba teaches how to recognize these patterns, unravel them, and understand the true intentions behind historical and spiritual narratives. The war on Earth, according to Baba, is often genetic and energetic, particularly targeting women as protectors of mitochondrial DNA, which carries vital programs. Understanding this gives insight into why certain patterns of control, deception, and manipulation persist. Religious texts often describe phenomena that appear miraculous or supernatural. Traditional interpretations present these as divine manifestations. However, closer analysis suggests these phenomena may reflect more complex interactions of light, energy, and human perception. The sun and other lights described in sacred texts, for instance, may not signify illumination in a conventional sense but rather emanations of energy perceived when invited into the human vessel, aligning with the concept of the Kadesh or Holy Spirit. Early passages in spiritual scrolls describe the process of preparing the human vessel to receive higher energies. This requires moral and physical discipline, avoidance of lies, sorcery, sexual immorality, murder, and other acts that disrupt natural order. Equally important is avoiding the consumption of intoxicants or improper foods, as these can harm the body and interfere with receptivity to spiritual energy. Furthermore, slander, gossip, and unquestioned blind faith allow external influences to manipulate the mind, leading to shared psychosis or mutual influence between individuals under the same energy field. The texts emphasize that divine presence is a light, not an illumination or ultimate source. It is only accessible to those who invite it within themselves. Acts 2:1-4 recounts the day of Pentecost, where energy manifested as tongues of fire entered individuals' beings, enabling spiritual communication. Similarly, Quranic references, for example, 43:84, 40-7, describe divine light and presence in ways that suggest advanced energetic entities rather than purely abstract metaphysical forces. Several passages in the Bible and Quran describe objects or beings that resemble extraterrestrial craft. For example, Zechariah 5:1-2 describes a flying roll in the sky, and Exodus 13:21-22 depicts a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night guiding people. These narratives may be interpreted as advanced beings using light and cloaking phenomena to influence human perception, creating illusions of miracles. Historical accounts of burning bushes or other manifestations may similarly represent hidden technological or energetic activity rather than purely divine intervention. The texts highlight the use of magic or illusions to influence human behavior. White magic, as described in the scrolls, involves manipulating light and perception to induce belief or reverence. Understanding these processes, rather than accepting them blindly, is key to human empowerment. Spiritual awakening, according to these traditions, involves discerning true knowledge from illusion and developing independent judgment while resisting external control. Language profoundly shapes perception and understanding. Misinterpretations of sacred texts arise when translations obscure original meanings, particularly when moving between Arabic, Hebrew, and English. Misguided interpretations perpetuate confusion and open individuals to manipulation by spiritual or extraterrestrial forces. True liberation, therefore, requires engaging with texts in their original context and developing one's own understanding rather than relying on intermediaries. Historical accounts, such as those by Elijah Muhammad, anticipated successors who would continue the work of knowledge transmission. These successors, exemplified by Baba in these texts, provide new frameworks and methods to access spiritual energy and understanding, emphasizing experiential learning and the activation of human potential. Knowledge is not static but evolves with changing conditions and time, as reflected in references to the Akashic records and conditional versus unconditional existence. Modern readers are challenged to reclaim spiritual knowledge while resisting inherited misconceptions. True empowerment arises from engaging directly with texts, opening the vessel, and cultivating discernment. Spiritual activation involves both individual preparation and collective awareness, allowing communities to reconnect with ancestral and cosmic knowledge while bypassing misleading intermediaries. Sacred texts reveal complex interactions between spiritual energy, human receptivity, and potential extraterrestrial influence. Understanding these phenomena requires careful study, moral discipline, and active engagement with original teachings. Liberation and empowerment emerge when individuals discern process from illusion, reclaim knowledge in its authentic form, and cultivate an internal vessel receptive to divine light as described in Scripture. The teachings of Empress V and Baba trace a profound journey of cultural and spiritual restoration, rooted in Africa and extending through the lineage of the Nubuns and the lost tribe of the Amasi. Empress V emphasizes that the origins of the Nubuns, who migrated from Africa, connect them to the earliest Native Americans, as documented in song records dating back to January 1992. Baba, arriving shortly thereafter, represents a branch of this lineage, offering guidance and healing. This journey is framed as a return to one's roots, a process of inner and outer healing that requires embracing the teachings of Abraham, or Ibrahim, who established a covenant with God, the deity of night and fire. Healing necessitates relinquishing the other fire, or harmful forces, that prevent true spiritual alignment. Baba's scrolls provide the tools for this transformation, but the individual must actively engage, rather than rely on external authority or fear-driven compliance. The practice of WOAT, Way of Absolute Truth, encourages reasoned understanding rather than blind adherence. True longevity and mastery over one's destiny come not from fear or faith alone but from knowledge and facts. This approach allows individuals to make informed decisions about the outcomes they wish to create, cultivating resilience and self-mastery. Historical and esoteric knowledge embedded in the scrolls connects spiritual practice to worldly events. For example, the sixth angel in Revelation, corresponding to the 6,000-year cycle, symbolizes geopolitical upheavals in the Middle East. The scrolls describe the release of 4 messengers, representing regions such as Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, whose conflicts align with prophecies in the book of Genesis and Revelation. These events are not merely political but also spiritual, demonstrating the cyclical consequences of human actions across generations. Baba emphasizes that while some peoples or nations may have faced judgment and extinction, others, particularly the lost tribe, remain accountable for self-healing and ethical alignment. This includes addressing ancestral traumas and genetic legacies, such as those resulting from historical conflicts or the atomic bombings in Japan. The residual effects of these events persist through generations, underscoring the importance of conscious effort to restore balance and integrity within oneself and one's lineage. The scrolls also highlight the dynamics of global power and alliances, illustrating how nations like China and Russia may act strategically in response to perceived threats or historical injustices. Yet, for the follower of Baba's teachings, engagement with such conflicts is secondary to personal spiritual and moral development. True empowerment arises from cultivating inner truth, giving back harmful influences, and refusing to participate in destructive cycles. Ultimately, the scrolls present a framework for understanding human history, spiritual lineage, and the personal responsibility required to achieve alignment with divine principles. Healing, knowledge, and informed decision-making create the conditions for mastery over one's destiny, enabling individuals to navigate both personal and collective challenges while restoring balance to themselves and their communities.